Welcome back to Just Your Average Joel podcast, where we talk about politics, religion, religion in our politics, politics in our religion, everything your mother told you not to talk about in polite company. We talked about step 1 last week, and this week we are going to talk about step 2 and talk about, Joel had an extraordinary experience. He had that bright light experience. It's the experience we're supposed to be that's supposed to be happening in recovery, and it's often not happening. And we're trying to dial in and find out why. I give you Joel.
Thank you. Welcome back. And we did talk a little bit about we talked quite a bit about step 1 last week. We're going to start going through the steps, the road. Something that was said, it's been said over and over, but in We Agnostics, on the bottom of We Agnostics, the gentleman there talks about having a spiritual experience, whether elongated or the educational ride, or that flash, that bright light where somebody in that moment dies, and a new self arises fairly quickly. That's the process that should be induced through everybody. That's the goal of the 12 steps, is enlightenment, a connection, a relationship with God for everybody, not just the guy who flashed. Because for some reason I'm put in this category of people, well, you had a bright light experience, so therefore it's not really that much different. I mean, it's the death of self through the ego, and it starts with, we talked about last week, we talked about the powerlessness. When Bill talks to Ebby, and I'm going to recap a little bit of step 1, and the insanity. Of course, the insanity of step 1 is exercise a power I don't have, imagine things I have no business managing, and continually doing that over and over and over. Then they have the stories of the jaywalker in the big book. They have Fred and the milk. But when Bill talks on page 10, and he's talking to Ebby, and Ebby, he says, well, he knew Ebby growing up, and he's like, Ebby, if I ever got right, what does he say? If I ever got as bad as Ebby, I'll do something. Ebby was sober, and Ebby goes to him and says, hey, and Bill stopped, and Bill's like, listen, he was rambling, and he's talking. He goes, he's cracked on gin. I think he's cracked on religion. He says, but I was interested. I had to be interested, for I was He says, I was interested. Of course I was interested, for I was hopeless. Now, that conceding that you're hopeless, now that the principle is that honesty coming to a place where I'm hopeless. Now, that is the gateway. That is the marker, and depending on what that means to you, on how much you're going to believe or need to have a belief. So the second step, this is what the second step, that a power greater than ourselves would restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Well, obviously it's making the assumption that you're crazy, okay? So that's a big deal, that I'm not right. Of course, the doctor's opinion talks about the peculiar mental twist, the problem lays in our mind. So here we are in a position where do I find hope? Where do I find hope? If the hope isn't in me, which that's where the beginning starts, I decided that of myself, I cannot do this. I'm starting to move. People talk like it's down the road. This God thing pops up at, I don't know when they talk about, 12, 9, way down the road, it seems. It's from Jump Street. You're starting to move towards, and hopefully you're moving right. We talked about this, right, Jen? Hopefully you're moving in the right direction. So if we're not starting the launch in the right direction, we're not going to land in the right spot. We're going to land in a different spot. Alcoholics Anonymous is great about, come believe in us. Well, that's good for when we get into page 25. It says, if you're seriously alcoholic, as we were, there was no middle of the road solution. We had entered into a region from which there was no return through human aid. That's who they're talking about in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. They're talking about people that it is no return through human aid. So that higher power's got to be kind of big. It's kind of big deal. Like people, human aid. It says also, what is the ABCs? Is probably no
human power could have relieved my alcoholism, and God couldn't would if he were sorry.
Right, that we're powerless over alcohol, their lives would become unimaginable. Probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism, and that God could and would if he were saw. That's the ABCs. So you're what you're saying is you don't think that people are seeking God when they come in. They're seeking what? AA, sponsorship. They're met right at the door. And a lot of people, listen, you can't transmit something you have. So people are giving them what they got. So if the majority of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous don't have a spiritual connection, do not have a relationship with God, they're going to offer them what they have. So that's what they offer them. For a guy like me, that's not going to work, obviously. So I don't think that a lot of people are. Obviously, the percentage rate is way down. I think there's people that are having spiritual experiences, relationships with God. I think they're happening in the churches much more than in AA. I think AA has become a place where in my area, I don't know if this is nationwide, I don't know if this is everywhere, but where we are and what we do, it is a religion. It's become a religion. It has become a relationship. So now if you're meeting me at the door and you're saying, well, get the sponsor, which is all great, get these things, these outside things, but AA is not, for a lot of people, AA is their God. That's their God. Their God is AA. So there's like two places you can wind up. You can wind up AA and the fellowship, and that's your God, or you can wind up with God. The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous brings you to God. It brings you to enlightenment.
And then AA and the sponsors just like, sprinkling on the sundae. It's not the main deal.
It's not the main deal. Well, that's what it talks about in Vision for You. It says he will
provide the fellowship you crave.
Exactly.
Well, talk about, I like when you say the analogy about prison, that you're in work release, but you're still in prison, because I think that's what's happening in AA a lot. The people are never breaking out of prison. They're in AA, they're with sponsorship, they're with fellowship, but they're not with God. They're not having these big transformations.
Well, the big reason is because they haven't really taken that step one on a deep, deep level, where it is more, let's skip over the steps. They're like, okay, let's just run you through the steps. Well, even when you get into the third step, it talks about that, we thought long and hard before making this decision. Now, if I don't believe, how am I going to come to a decision? What am I deciding on if I haven't come to a belief? So belief is bigger than you think.
Well, we were kind of talking about this over breakfast. Believe in a lot of people believe in sponsorship and the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. They say it all the time. If AA shut down, they wouldn't be sober. A lot of people relapsed during COVID. AA is the power, the people, so what are you believing in, I guess? What are you believing in? I sponsor a lot of, they do not believe in God. They fight for the right to not believe in God in AA all the time. They talk about it all the time. Let's not talk about God. Let's not scare the newcomer. You can be atheist. You can be agnostic. So they think there is a power in the step. Yes.
In the people.
The people?
Self is self. I have a self. If I get a coliseum of selves, can't change Joel. And that's the difference in somebody who's had an awakening and a spiritual awakening. It is supernatural. It is beyond something that they could ever done. It's when they're talking the essential psychic change, that transformation. If I really believe that I'm crazy, I'm whacked out, okay, I'm beyond human aid, that's what they really ask. That's what the first step is. I'm beyond human. I just read it. No, we've entered into region where there is no return through with middle road solution, and it talks about there is no return through human aid. If I really believe that, okay, then what am I going to do? There's going to be a difference in how I approach this thing. It's going to be a different
So
trajectory.
Step 2 says we cease fighting anything and anyone, but yet they are often fighting the idea of God when they come to...
Well, and then you get into the God, your idea didn't work, the God idea did. Yeah. They get into... See, the reason why you don't want to get into the book too much, because the book casts out the belief in self. It's all about not believing in self and believing in God. And they say it very nicely. They do it a lot of different ways.
Melts the icy intellectual mountain. It talks a lot about that in Bill's story.
Well, and Bob, Bob was one of the co-founders too, right? So you got Bill and Bob. Bob, in his 10 pages, I think, of what he had to say, in one of his part where he says, if you're atheist or agnostic, I feel sorry for you. Basically, so any other intellectual pride that stops you from accepting what's in this book, I feel sorry for you. This is how he thought about the atheist and agnostic. And then, of course, at the end of it, he says, "Your heavenly Father will never let you down." This is one of the co-founders. Sponsored like 5,000 people. It's probably been more somebody who has worked with more alcoholics. This is what he believed and what he thought of being agnostic, and how that has no alignment with what's in the book. The book is, we have a whole chapter, we agnostics, to tell you what is it to do.
Tell you not to be agnostic.
Convince you not to be agnostic. So to have a belief in this power, and now we can go through all the different things of belief. I mean, if you're an atheist or an agnostic, but if you're an atheist and you believe in like the Big Bang theories and stuff like that, that takes more faith than believing in God. I mean, that there is no desire, that everything, think about this, that everything came from nothing. There's no place in the world that everything comes from nothing. And then, of course, then they got to get into the idea of evolution, where we went from single cell organs to there's no 2, there's no 3, there's no 4. It's like we go to multi-cell organisms. I mean, there's a jump, there's leaps, there's a lot of having to have faith and belief to believe that all of a sudden, bam, all this came into existence. That's like what's his name? The guy who does the
Ken Hovind?
No, Family Feud.
Oh yeah. Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey. He goes, I don't know what to tell you, man. If you don't believe in God, he goes, I just walk away. He goes, how you got an explanation for all this stuff? You got an explanation for this? And belief comes, the biggest part about the belief part, though, for me, Alcoholics Anonymous, Jesus Christ, this, Buddha, whoever you want to believe. The most important thing is that you stop believing in yourself and your own power. And a lot of people, even when the Carl Jung was working with guys like Roland Hazard, they were non-alcoholics. These were psychiatrists, some of the best of the time. And they were like, they were more hopeless and believed in a power more than the alcoholic, because they had exercised their power to try to get these guys sober over all those years. So their evidence was like, you guys are going to need a higher power. You're going to need like God, man. They're going to need a miracle. Okay, you're going to need a miracle. And that's what we used to say in the program Alcohol Studies, used to say, expect a miracle, right? Miracles are happening for people. But if you don't believe, how's the miracle? That's like that thing. Grace is pouring down, right? It's pouring down everywhere. You're walking around with the umbrella. So you're not experiencing any of that grace. Well, that's part of what we do here. You start putting that umbrella down so you can start experiencing that grace. That grace falls on the just and the unjust. It's poured down on everybody. You don't believe it's there. I mean, if you don't believe there's a God, there's no God. If you believe there's a God, well, now you have a chance to experience that power of that God. Yes. So we got to open up into that. Now, a lot of people, like I said, good orderly direction, all that stuff, that's all great. It's all dead end. Listen, everything in the world of ego comes to die. This table that I'm sitting in front of, all this stuff in 1,000 years, this is all temporal. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but as far as something that's eternal, that's God. So when you start putting your sobriety into temporal things, a sponsor, a group, I've had the whole group like turn against. You could have a sponsor.
Get drunk. I've got a couple of them.
Or sponsee, try to take your husband, whatever. You got all kinds of stuff going on. There's all kinds of stuff that happens in human affairs that if you're going to be resting on that, you're going to have a problem. At some point, somewhere, you're going to have a problem. So there's a big part about belief. I have a few things written down, but what were you thinking about as far as? I was thinking about in We Agnostics, page 44. It goes if this is the case, because it talks about. If you have a problem with drink, you can't stop. It talks about the powerlessness again, and it says if this be the case, you might have an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. Only, that you get into very definitive things. Only, and I like the permanence of it too. You talk to a lot of people in the program, they'll be like, well, God willing, I'll be so, it's like, listen, man, conquer. We're talking about, they talked a lot more in absolutes back then. And that's part of the responsibility. The responsibility is I'm responsible to believe. I'm the one who's responsible for my decision. Yeah. God's not over there. I think I'll just let Joel get drunk. So
God willing, let me tell you, God's willing. Are you?
Yeah, God's
the problem isn't with God.
But my problem with my relationship with God over all these years has never been God.
Yeah,
you're right.
Exactly.
So I'm always the weak link in that relationship. Lack of power was our dilemma. It said, this is page 45. I love this because it says lack of power was our dilemma. We had to find a power greater than ourselves. But how and where were we going to find that power, right? It says we need to find a higher power, obviously. And it goes, well, where were we going to find this power? Well, it says, well, that's exactly why we wrote this book. And then they go into talking about, we've written something that's moral, and yes, we're going to be talking about God. Belief, I was looking at some of the definitions on belief. To accept something as true, genuine, real, often implying trust, confidence, without absolute proof. Another one, belief in a higher power often influences behavior, promoting moral justice and personal accountability to a higher authority. That's just a couple things. It also says it gives you inner peace. Sometimes, listen, I'm over there, I'm hopeless, I'm screwed. Now what? At least it gives me hope. At least I got hope. And that is the principle behind the second step, is hope. So now I have hope that now I'm going in a different direction. Remember, I'm just abandoning myself now. I'm starting to walk in this other direction. This other direction says, okay, there's a power greater than ourselves out there that could restore, could relieve me of this insanity, could do something, could actually heal me. I mean, Bill talks about being cured. So we start moving in that direction.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is to believe. And that's why I say you have a window of opportunity when you come into sobriety, is to lose the belief in yourself. I think the problem a lot of time is they don't, to such a significant degree, they still have belief in themselves. They don't, I think that's an important part.
Right. Well, everybody's getting an education too. It's, what am I going to learn here? You ain't learning nothing. You need to unlearn stuff. It's like almost the opposite's going on. We got to get rid of self. We got to, and then
they're building up a self. As soon as they get sober, they start building up a self. That's the ABC's apartment, boyfriend, and car. They start building up a self. They don't want, I wasn't that bad of a mother. I wasn't that bad of a wife. So I think to the, Harry Tiebout talks about that a lot, the psychiatrist, that he was trying to induce that state of hopelessness in the alcoholic, and he couldn't, and I think sometimes in AA, instead of trying to induce that state of hopelessness, they right away rush to help and start building the person up, and I think that's kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here.
Right, and you used to say I'd lose everything but my ego,
Yeah.
So we lose everything, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, you're doing a great job. You can do it. I mean, it's like, no, you can't. You can't do it. That's why you're here. It's like, and then somebody will come to you, you're working with somebody, and then they're telling you, it's like, listen, man, you called me. Okay, this is kind of what I want to tell you about what you might want to do in this situation. And they're like completely refusing any of that.
Well,
so that shows me they have a lot of belief left in their own ideas.
It's the prison thing that you said too, like where you start out in the bubble and then you go into population.
Yeah, you told me about that. Yeah.
Well, because that's what would happen. I would come to AA. First of all, I was young. I remember the first time I came, I wasn't even drinking age yet. I was young. I was cute. I came in. The guys were so nice to me. They were so helpful. And I mean, right away they started making me feel like I wasn't that bad. I was doing pretty good, So, and next time I came to AA, I met Danny. We're going to get married and have a baby and buy a house. It's like the minute my little high heel would walk over the threshold of AA, the people would rush me, and I'd start, right away building a self in AA. I didn't know what the problem was. I thought my problem was a drinking problem. Stop drinking, problem solved. So as soon as my little heel would go over that threshold, the people would meet me, the fellowship would meet me, and I'd start building this life. And then what was wrong with me internally would burn it all to the ground over and over again, because my problem wasn't drinking. I never realized that I was insane, and the insanity was stone cold sober. Mm-hmm. And it's just what you say. I think it happens a lot in AA, and it's the prison analogy.
Yeah, the prison analogy is what I use when you first get locked up. So you get locked up, they put you in the bubble. First you're in the bubble, and then it's like the bubble kind of sucks because now you're in isolation. Or there was guys that were behind the bubble, last time I got locked up. I was locked up for the criminally insane, and they were guys back there screaming. They were behind the bubble. I don't know how crazy. I mean, how crazy you got to be back there. But anyway, so they put me in the bubble. After a while, you get out of the bubble, and then you go into general population. You got your own room. You might have a roomie, whatever. But now you're here. Now, if you stay long enough, you have your trustee. You're still walking around that prison. You're all over the place in that prison. You might even get work release. You might even be outside working out there. But the truth of the matter is, you're still in jail. You're still in jail. You're still in prison. You're in the prison of your own self. It seems better. It seems more comfortable. And that's kind of what happens in AA. It's a lot better because now they're not drinking for some people. Now, if you're of a hopeless variety, such as myself, you're going to get sober. You're going to be doing stuff crazy that sober, like you're almost like worse off sober. You know what I mean? I'm kind of grateful for that in a lot of ways.
Progression.
And that first step really takes care of your belief. A lot of people, they come in, well, I don't know if I want to believe. Listen, man, if you really concede to yourself and you really get it and digest how absolutely and have that moment of clarity and how crazy you really are and how unbelievably, I mean, like I go back to when I was 23, 120 pounds, one pair of pants, bobbing down the street and homeless, not having any structurally challenged. I like using, but I was walking around down the street and in my mind, I was like, I just made a few bad decisions. If I make a couple good decisions, I'll get out of this. I'll be back, indoors. I'll have clothes. More clothes. Maybe I'll be, fantasies in my mind. In retrospect, how insane that was. Do you understand how insane that is? Well, that's how insane it is for me to run my life. And the thing about that step it's all one step, as Jen says. So the unmanageability. Listen, if I can manage, I don't need a new manager. You understand that as long as I can manage, I don't need a new manager. So that's huge. And that's sober. See, everybody's like, you'll hear it in the media all the time. It's like, when I was drinking, their life was unmanageable. It's become unmanageable. Well, it makes the kind of idea that it's become unmanageable. Listen, man, get sober. Guess what? For me, I'm crazy. I can't manage sober. Okay. I can't. Now, I've been sober 30 years. I can't manage. Do you understand that? I can't manage now without God managing and running my life and me keep continually turning over to God. I veer off. I do crazy stuff. I have an obsession to run my own. What is the great sin? What is the great sin? To be apart from God. That was the original sin. It is still what can separate me from God. So that is the whole insanity. The insanity is wanting to be our own gods, run our own stuff. Every day I go out in the world, what does it do? It tells me, I tell the guy I work in construction here, bring me that board. That board comes to me. I mean, I'm building against myself every day, so the illusion of power. So a lot of that's got to be smashed, man. It's got to be ground zero. And now, like I said, if you're comforted and people helping you, it's almost like the enabler. It's not really helping the person. You know what I mean? It's almost better. That's like that guy told me, hit bottom.
Unable you.
Right.
Not enable you, they unable you.
And it's insist on hitting bottom. Because then it's, then it's not a big debate about the belief thing. Yeah. The belief thing isn't that big of a hurdle when you're that screwed. Yeah. Now, of course, the big tent thing, which they started doing at Alcoholics Anonymous, they said, well, it's a small, even Bill said, well, I didn't completely believe in a lot of bullshit. I didn't it's like, listen, man, you're about ready to make a third step to make a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God. It talks about thinking long and hard about that. So it's not like a little decision you're going to make. So belief is huge. It's not like, and what are you going to believe in? Right? What are you going to believe in? I remember a guy said, hey, put your faith in something worth putting your faith in.
Exactly.
So,
what about this? This is what I hear all the time. So they're getting ready to take a second step, but they came in with a punishing God. So now they want to make up a new God, a nice, loving God that they can trust, that they can turn their life. They want a God that they can do business with. They want to have their sponsors have them make lists and stuff. What about that? Any problem with that? Making up your own God?
Here I'm a madman, total insane maniac. Just got off the smoke. I've been drinking, smoking crack my whole. I'm going to make up my perception of God. I'm going to write down, okay, you know what I'm going to have? It's a twisted, whacked out God. That's what I'm going to have. I don't know about you. I'm beyond all that. And maybe some people can make up like, well, I want him to be friendly and nice. And listen, man, it's more about surrender. It's more about, God, what do you want me to do?
So that's still not surrender.
I don't think that's
still
surrender.
You being in control. And even when they say, like, well, pick winners and losers, are you really in a position to be picking winners and losers? You just came in off the street.
Seek the kingdom of God first, and all things will be added unto you. That's the way it works. I don't care what anybody says. But that's for the real
alcoholic, the low bottom. Some of the people are coming in, and they got their business, they got their house, they got their car, they got their wife. Their life seemingly on the outside looks good. What about that?
Well, what I'll tell you about that, eventually they're going to catch alcoholism. And what's going to happen, it's a progressive disease. So if you have it, you might start out first 10 years doing pretty well, managing, running, doing stuff like that, but it's going to catch you, because the truth of the matter is this is a lot deeper than this is. Listen, everybody on earth is here for one reason, whether you're alcoholic or not, to find out who put you here, and the creator of the universe, and
God to be glorified, not you.
That's for everybody, whether you're alcoholic or not.
Yes.
So that is the meaning of life. So if you're in some kind of meaningless, self-absorbed thing that's all in the temporal world or whatever, eventually that's going to come to an end. Now, some people, I would say, they do get into the love of their child, love indirectly is God in their life, and in the love for AA. So they have a love for AA. It's still temporal, though. It's still not what we're looking to do. See, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. We're trying to have not only the essential psychic change, we're trying to have a sixth sense that they're talking about in the 10th step. I'm talking about the program. I'm not talking about AA. That it's a great organization, all the great stuff about the Rotary Club or the Car Club or whatever club. I'm talking about how it's designed in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, to bring about enlightenment and a relationship where you're in communication with the God of the universe. Okay, that's a whole different path. That's the path that somebody like myself is going to have, rather than the guy that can live in the temporal world and I'm not that guy. And that's who the big book Alcoholics Anonymous was originally designed for.
Well,
people like myself and you.
And Michael Coccini was on Taylor Welsh's show on Deep End, and he said the problem is that the 12 step hijacked the program from the Bible on salvation, and then took the power out of it.
Kicked him out.
Yeah. So like when you say,
well,
the day for honoring yourself will come to an end, the whole, like you said, my purpose here, God didn't make me to glory. He made me so that his glory would be known on earth. That is my purpose, for God's glory to be known here on earth. Alcoholism was the exposed kind of what was wrong with me. You know what I mean? So the program is here. That's what the whole program was designed to do, for me to have a relationship with God, for me to be that. So you take God out of it, then what does the program turn into? It turns into more of a. Remember when Joyce Meyer said that Jesus came riding into town on the donkey? They were all saying Hosanna, Hallelujah, throwing palms. Imagine if the donkey thought all of that hoopla was for him, and you're the donkey. And the problem in the program is, a lot of people, they don't realize they're the donkey. It's a lot of, look at what I've done, look how great I am, so it's...
Well, it's worship. I think we've been designed to worship God. And the thing about that is, if you start on a belief and a path of something else, you're really worshiping yourself. You really, listen, if somebody goes, oh, my sponsor, and they start elevating that person, they're really, listen, self is self. You're elevating yourself. You're making them important. I don't know why you're making them important. Maybe you want people to feel you're important, but that's not what this is the only organization you'll ever join that you come up to, when you first walk through the door, you're somebody, you're a lot. You're all of what you think about to become nobody. Nobody has no problem, because we realize self is the problem. So self is a self. Self is over here. You get into Eckhart Tolle, all of them will say the same thing. That self, so that worship of, so what am I doing? I'm worshiping other things. I was thinking about Christ the other day, and when, it was Easter and all that, and I was thinking, here's Peter. Peter, he says, I'll build my house on you, Peter. Peter was he's the one who got out of the boat, remember? Peter had great faith in God. And what did he say? In Christ, and he says, you will deny me 3 times. So when you think about what you're going to believe in, let me just tell you, God's not going to desert you. And he knew that those men were all going to fall him. They were all going to falter him. They were all going to they were all going to abandon him. And the belief in other things that are not of God will never work. And it's really deeper than that, because if you're really that bad off, you need something that's an internal change. Like, you need something supernatural to happen to you. A lot of people don't need something supernatural. They can have an outside thing happen. So that's why Alcoholics Anonymous has become more religion. Because remember, religion's an outside thing.
Right.
So they're doing the outside thing, and that kind of soothes them on the inside. Are they having a transformed mind where they're walking out the door and they're seeing the trees are treer? Like, what's the name of Price? There was a preacher who said he got hit with the Holy Spirit. And he says the trees got treer and the grass got grassier. Like, are they seeing a different world? Are they seeing the greenness and the godness of it? Are they in communication? Are they? Do they recognize who's off, who's not? Where a lot of them have no clue. I mean, there's a gift of the Holy Spirit that comes, okay, that gives you discernment. That's what they're going to be talking about in the 10th step, way ahead in the 10th. How are you going to have that vital, which we can look up that word. I'm sure it's kind of like essential. How are you going to have that built into your body? Because then how you not lean on your own understanding? So if you're coming in getting knowledge out of books, knowledge from people, what are you doing really? You're resting on something that's not the rock. You're resting on something that's is temporal. I mean, and it's hard to figure that out. It's hard to see that because it can go on for years, and groups and tons of people and the masses. I mean, look, the masses doing crazy stuff in Germany, and you get a little masses, and everybody's buying into it, man. Everybody's going, oh, this is how it is. That's not how it is. That's not how the book is, and what to believe in. So. For me, it's very important to start in the right direction, that we're going towards God. And it's good when you said that. What did you say about, you read the back of the book?
I went to the back of the book. I read the spiritual experience in the back of the book. And so I knew right from the beginning that this whole thing was about a relationship with God. And I was glad, too, because I'd been in and out of AA. To tell you the truth, I've been in and out of AA, and I thought AA didn't work. And when I came this time, when my sponsor told me, I needed a God in my life. I was like, finally, someone who realizes how crazy I am. I need the big guns. I need real help. These little, pretend Sigmund Freud people in AA are not a power great enough to help me. I need a real power. I need that transformations God. I after being in and out so many times, the fellowship, they say meeting makers make it. I didn't. The fellowship, group of drunks. I can't get along with a group of drunks without essential psychic change. Good orderly direction. I can't follow directions without that essential psychic change.
But you need the power.
I need the power. I never had the power. I was in and out of AA, but I didn't have the power.
And they're kind of skipping the whole surrender thing where you're kind of dipping into that, like, what is it? It's easier for a rich man to enter into it's easier for a camel to enter into the
eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
And what they meant was the eye of the needle back in the day, that was the walls that they had. And the eye of the needle was where they brought goods in, and the camel could go in the eye of the needle, but he'd have to really crawl down. So it doesn't mean that a rich man can't get in there, but part of being the rich is part of, I still got power. There's a lot of power in money. There's a lot of power. And so that's why it's hard for people that are established that's why one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, and that's why I'm so grateful that my alcoholism took me to certain places, is that I was broken so bad that I knew I couldn't fix me. I knew I couldn't fix myself to a really deep level. So that helps. That helps everything. And I like when you said about the spirit. Let's look at the destination. Where are we trying to end up?
Yeah, so I don't get on the wrong plane, train, or automobile. You know what I mean?
You're
I
on the
want to
wrong
be going
plane.
in the right direction.
And a lot of them are taking you on the wrong plane. They're not there. And that's what that big thing I brought up a few weeks ago was the woe that you haven't entered into the kingdom of God. Jesus Christ said that to the Pharisees, and he was awfully mean about it in a way. I mean, not the mamby-pamby Jesus, the real one. He was like, listen, woe to you that's standing outside the kingdom of God, haven't entered, and you're telling me they don't have to either. So there's a responsibility in that. But listen, these people probably don't know any better. That's what's working.
Them, they know not what they do.
That's working what's working for them, and it's not. Listen, man, even if you get into page like 93, there's a place in working with others. And when you start working with others, it talks about a lot about a relationship with God. You have to have that. Don't put your dependence upon people. As long as he doesn't put his dependence on people before God. Goes through it a bunch of different times. So 93, it also says, even if your prospect, so now we're not even talking to somebody that's really been down the road a little bit, even if your prospect is atheist or agnostic, okay, That's fine. He doesn't have to have your perception of God. That's fine. But he's got to have something that makes sense to him. And he's going to have to believe in some kind of spiritual solution. So they break it down. They really soften it for him. But listen, man, it's going to have to be something outside of him. And it's going to have to be in spiritual nature. So, I mean, really, it's going to wind you up in the same place. I mean, listen, God knows his name. I mean, if you're sincere about
Yeah, not that you're looking for a specific idea of God. You're just looking for God. It's like, I'm not looking to be
Exactly.
right. I'm looking for the truth. I have to open my mind up. I'm not putting God in a box. I'm getting on my knees. I'm crying out from my heart and I realize that I have to find this God. God will take care of the rest.
Hopelessness makes you sincere.
Yeah,
That's what the
absolutely.
sincerity
Yeah.
comes from. And when you're sincere, God answers that. God knows the language of the heart. You can't
Yes.
bullshit God. So God
Yes.
will answer that. So you'll be on the right path.
Yes.
Because God's going to bring you out. You're not leading God spiritually. I think that's one of the biggest fallacies
Yes.
ever. Like, oh, I brought forgiveness in step 8. It's like, listen, man, God forgave you, therefore I
Yeah.
forgive.
It's not an intellectual head thing where I'm making up a God and I'm figuring out. And it's a heart thing where I need God. I'm on my knees. I'm crying out, and
Right.
God will take care of the rest.
And belief, as the Turks, this old guy used to come to the meetings. He's since passed, but he used to say about belief, and he says, they used to, and whether you believe they made it to the moon or not, because there's a lot of stuff coming up lately. But anyway, with the Artemis thing, but listen, so they believed they could go to the moon. So that belief, what did that belief do? It spurred. Okay, well, we need money, so now we got to go. Now look at all the action that belief spurs. So if you don't believe, there's no action. Mm-hmm. So when the belief of that they could go to the moon, so what they do? They go, hey, we got to raise money. So now you got people out raising money. Well, who do we need? Well, we need engineers, right? You're going to need drawings. You're going to need all this stuff starts happening. Now they don't know, but they believe. So all this action starts happening because of that belief. It spurs all kinds of action. If you don't believe, then none of that stuff happens. None of the action happens. Nothing follows that. So, that and really the belief brings you to decision. And that decision is really what, boom, God really can take over. The first 3 steps are the launch pad. I'd say step 1 more than anything. Because once you're hopeless, whatever, you stop fighting, the fight's out of you, you're not, none of that crap's going on. You're like, okay, I'm going down this road. I got no other place to go.
Yeah, you refrain from the debating society. Yeah. You drop to knees and you cry out sincerely from your heart to God.
Yeah, every time I debated whether I was an alcoholic, I lost the debate.
Exactly.
Because the debate is in my mind. So I had to realize, and this is another thing, people, or they're going to alcoholics, or they're going and they're going to learn stuff. Listen, man, you've already learned too much. Okay, you got a head full of crap. You got to unpack this shit. I used to say, you're full of shit when you get here. Well, you're full of shit. Yeah, all these million ideas you have in your head, all got to go. And it talks about that somewhere. I had to cast aside lifelong perceptions and concepts. Had to. They use a lot of words like had to, only. When you really do the program. Now, a lot of people are going to balk. It says at some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. Well, that is the program, Alcoholics Anonymous. What the program, as it's designed now, or AA, is the easier, softer way, which it's not, because it doesn't. A lot of times, doesn't believe you in bring you into God. The almost the harder way is to say, okay, I only have to, the 62
right
musts.
From the beginning.
Right from the beginning.
That girl last night relapsed after 17 years. We know plenty of people that, so it really is the easier, softer way. Just know where you're going right from the beginning.
Yeah, because alcoholism is progressive. So you can come in there and kind of have a self. Like I had no self when I got here. As soon as I started getting a self back, I started actually managing again. As soon as I got around my feet a little bit, and that caused me problems, and then I would go through it again and again. Mm-hmm. So, but a lot of people, when they first get started, they have quite a bit of self left. Yes. So they they're doing pretty good. They're picking and choosing and making decisions and all kinds of stuff. Eventually, it's progressive. Regardless, it's regressive. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. Now, it could be at 7 years. Once the guy said, he said the sponsor looked at, he says, "You're the most angry. You're the worst 7 years sobriety I've ever seen."
Dry, you're a fire hazard. Don't light a match.
Don't light a match around this guy. Well, why? Because he's going deeper into the woods of ego, deeper into his head, deeper into the world of thought. And eventually, he's going to have to abandon his thinking and get spiritual. A lot of people got cerebral sobriety. They're walking around like this. They talk with their heads. They're like talking heads.
The visual that you said, like feed my head, but it's like the world of the ego. The world, it's your head's getting bigger, bigger, bigger. What's going to happen eventually? You're going to topple over, and that's what happens. You watch people build such a big self in sobriety that they fall over. They don't have deep spiritual roots. Paul says, I die daily. So as my physical world is enlarging, if my spiritual life's not enlarging, and the big book says the only reason that a man drinks again is because he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. So his physical, temporal, this life was growing, and his spirit wasn't growing along with it, and really he couldn't handle it. And like you said, you can't lead God spiritually. If I get out here and build this big life with nothing spiritual to sustain it, it's going to be a problem.
Exactly. And then even the book, I want to say it's in We Agnostic, but it says either God is everything or he's nothing. What's your choice to be? So what is your choice to be in this? Are you going to believe or not believe? How's your life? It's really easy when somebody's really screwed. Because it's like, you like what you got, you like what you have you're going to keep what you got, so
when it's really bad. No, take it.
Or believe and go down this path. This is the path we offer. Where there's one path. There's not a million paths to it. There's not all the different concepts of the path. There's really one path. It's actually a narrow road because it's have to's, musts.
Well, I guess that's why they tell people, if you're still fighting, it's like, nobody says it in AA and they get mad now if you say it, but it's like, go out and have a drink. I mean, go get it done. Go get good and done so that you come back willing. It works better.
Well, and it makes it actually harder because what happens if you come in, then you're disenchanted with the program. Like you're saying, the program doesn't work. This isn't, well, you're not even doing it. You're not even on the path. You're not even set your feet on the trajectory. You weren't
done enough to do it. You're doing the other thing. You're in work
there's
release.
A lot of the other thing. That's the problem. It's a lot of the other thing. There's more of that, way more than that, than there is what's really important, and that's a belief in God. And what Guy said, difference between you and God don't want to be you. And that's the fight. That is the fight. We always want to believe in ourselves. It's very difficult to come to a place where I'm going to believe in something outside of me. Okay. And like I said, and the trap door in that is starting to believe in all these people. So believing in the people, that's going to be just another door that might give you temporary relief, but it's not going to give you the psychic change. We're going to get into it. When we get into step 3, long and hard, it says sometimes a great feeling was felt at once when you made this decision. It says it talks about a consciousness in the 3rd step. You won't even hear that. I'm just telling you, you go places and you hear about on page 63 that experience of the 3rd step experience. You won't hear. You go to 1,000 meetings, you won't even hear anybody say about shift in consciousness.
Well, exactly, and they always say, tell what it was like, what happened, and what it was like now. And the book says, tell what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. So they're never looking at their state of consciousness. They're always looking at outside circumstances. And the problem with the alcoholic, we can get the guy. Can't have the marriage. We can get the job. We can't have the career. It takes character to have a long-term. If I don't have God at the center of my marriage, God at the center of my career, I'm not going to have those things. I mean, it is a difference. That's so just getting the guy, getting the house, getting the job, what good is that if what's wrong with you internally is going to screw the whole thing up? You don't have any. I always thought of this lady in an Al-Anon meeting one time. She had cockroaches, and she got everything out of the house, and she sprayed it for cockroaches. She moved back in, never changed the way she was living, and she was shocked when the cockroaches came back. I'm like, big shocker, lady, But that's what people in AA do all the time.
Right. So hopefully we can convince you. Somewhere in the book it says, you've convinced us. Now, this is another part of the book. I want to say it's in the step book, but it's one of the books. It goes, now that you've convinced us that we're hopeless, and now what do we do? It's like, now that you've kind of like said, hey, well, here's the path. You're going to believe in a power greater than yourselves, which is going to be the archway to a step 3, to really, truly making a decision. When you make that decision, It's based on the fact that you're hopeless. It's based on that your life ran by you. And now the book goes over and over. If you look they'll read How It Works in the book. So How It Works goes through 12 steps, and then it stops. And then it goes after that from 60 to 63, which is what we'll be talking about a lot more next week. It goes and it doubles down on why you need to make this decision, why you need to believe in something besides yourself, why it's impossible for you to get rid of self on your own power, that you have to believe in something that's more powerful than you. And you is them, just so you know. We're all the same. That's not going to do something that's internal, essential psychic change, supernatural. So we're talking about something that's a lot bigger than anything any people could do. And you know what? Good thing, because if people could do it, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Just so you know. If people could have got me sober, that wouldn't be a great big deal. But the God of the universe raised me up and changed and transformed my life, that's a big deal. So that's pretty much where we're at. We're into it quite a bit today.
Yeah.
So.
And I always like the analogy about my sponsors say the only thing worse than your problem is your solution to it. Mm-hmm. And that decision to call God is, I remember she was telling me about, the refrigerator wasn't working, so I wired it to the microwave, and the microwave wasn't working, so I wired it to the dishwasher. And the point is, my whole house was getting ready to burn down, and I need to call the master electrician. I need to rewire, because the same mind that created the problem can't cure the problem.
Exactly. All right, everybody. So we're gonna finish it up. We're gonna subscribe, follow, share, comment. Listen, if you got a bone to pick, whatever, put it on there. You don't agree? Well, we'll hash it out. The one thing I can tell you about my experience, I can back it up in the book. I can back up my experiences in the book. I can show you right in the book. So, but yeah, if there's something you don't agree with, whatever, it didn't work for you, whatever. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear from some people, and whether you like, and if you like it too, let me know. All right. Until next week. Thank you.